Hey, how you doing? Hope you all are doing great. As you've seen in the thumbnail, in this video, we're going to see what if Banished Naruto sent to Legend of Zelda. This is part 2, and before getting into video, I request you to check the author of this fanfic and show some love and support. Name of the story is Legend of Naruto by Leaf Ranger. Do check it. All details in description. And if you want next part of this series, please leave a like, share, and consider subscribe. Let's get into the video. Also check out Patreon for uncensored spicy content. Link in description. 2 years later in the land of rivers, 5 bandits snickered as they tied a family to an oak tree. They had ambushed them in their camp while they slept. Now they ransacked the place, looking for gold and valuables. The 2 children, a young boy and girl, whimpered in fear, while the mother tried to comfort them with her words. The father glared at the bandits, wishing he hadn't been so sloppy and could have gotten to his sword in time. "Hey boss," one of the bandits, a fat, greasy man with an axe, yelled from the tent which he was busy searching. The leader of the bandits, a tall man with a rusty katana, walked over. "What? Look at this." The fat man held up a necklace with a brilliant emerald in it. The leader nodded in approval. "Very nice. Put it with the rest." The other 3 men, all muscular men with little intelligence, were busy going through the cart the family had. Their mule lay on the ground, its throat slit. In the trees nearby, 2 figures watched the whole incident. One of them, wearing regular clothes, leaned back against the tree. "So, what do we do?" The other man, who was over 5 feet in height, pushed his sunglasses back up on his face before running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. He wore a gray mesh muscle shirt, black cargo pants, and a long black coat with several pockets on the inside. He had on black shinobi sandals and a pair of black fingerless gloves with metal plates on the back of the hands. A black katana hilt showed over his right shoulder, while a red and black one peeked out of his coat. "Well, you get their attention. Then I go in, free the family, and we take them out. The leader's mine. I bet he's never even used that sword in his life." The other man nodded. "Sounds like a plan. Glad I didn't have to come up with it." The 2 figures vanished without a sound. Back in the clearing, the little girl began to cry. One of the bandits came over. "Shut up, little missy, or I'll really give you something to cry about." "Don't you touch her, you coward," the dad yelled. The bandit drew out a knife as he approached the tied-up man. "Or what? I think you need to be taught some manners." He raised a hand to open the father's mouth and pull out his tongue, only to have a vine wrap around his wrist. "How mind if I cut in?" With that, Aren Piku Uzumaki, now nicknamed the Green Ghost, had the man yanked back off his feet and onto the ground. At the same time, another bandit was hit by a tree branch that swung his way. The leader turned to all the commotion, in time to see 4 of the blonde man free the family and pull them to safety. The real one came out from behind a tree. The fat bandit began to shake. "Tita, it's Tita. Yeah, it's the one and only Black Fox." With that, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Black Fox, pulled a kunai from in his jacket, and in the same movement, flung it right into the man's forehead. He fell without a sound. The bandit Aren faced off against found himself being shackled to the ground by dirt which swiftly covered his limbs. Aren turned, his dark yellow and blue armor forming around him. He channeled chakra into both his arms, creating both his shields. One of the bandits swung a heavy cleaving blade down on him, only to be blocked by the left shield. From the right, a blade emerged before splitting into a tri-pronged blade. He caught the bandit's blade in between one of the prongs and the main blade and twisted, snapping the cleaver in half. The bandit backed up, dropping his blade, and then turned to run. Aren formed a bolus from a vine and 3 rocks and began to swing them around before releasing it. It thrummed through the air and caught around the bandit's neck. The rocks whirled around before one smashed into the bandit's nose, breaking it and dropping him. Aren let out a satisfied smile. "Man, I love my work," he said, as Haya snickered in him. "Nice one." Naruto reached over his back and pulled out the simple katana. He held it loosely in his hand, watching the 2 bandits. The one was shaking, and his sword proved it, the way it was twitching back and forth. The leader smirked. "You're nothing but a kid. I don't care how many men you've killed. I'll defeat you." With a roar, he charged forward. Naruto looked at him, then in casually way moved to the left. As he moved, Naruto stuck his left foot out and tripped the man up sending him crashing to the ground. Naruto trapped his blade with one foot and swung his sword down. The rusty blade broke in half, and Naruto stepped back, allowing the leader to get up, holding a shorn hilt. He backed up, turned, and grabbed the sword from the other bandit's hand and charged forward again. This time, Naruto stepped forward and to the side, blocking the attack with ease. He pushed up, knocking the blade upwards before reversing his attack and hitting the man in the back of the legs with the flat of his blade. As the bandit fell, Naruto stabbed down while falling to one knee, his blade entering the leader's chest. The whole time, his eyes remained on the now quivering mess that had been the other bandit. "Boo!" he whispered. The terrified man did three things in this order. He screamed like a little girl, wet himself, and passed out. Naruto shook his head as he cleaned his sword and sheathed it with a flourish. He looked around the campsite. Eren was busy tying up the two he had fought before dragging the other one over. Naruto created two more shadow clones, which dragged the bodies away after searching them for any valuables. When they were gone, the other clones brought the family back. Naruto nodded to all of them. "I trust you're all right?" The husband nodded. "We are. Thank you. You arrived just in time." Eren smiled. "It was no problem. Glad we could help." Naruto held out the necklace. "Here, this is yours." The wife smiled happily as she took it. "Thank you. It belonged to my mother, and it's all I have of her now." Naruto nodded before looking around. "There's a town not too far from here. We should be able to get you their safety." He bit his thumb and began performing hand signs before slamming his hand down on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. In a poof of smoke, a large brown fox, about as big as a horse, appeared. It turned to look at Naruto. "What do you need?" Naruto nodded to the cart. "Help me pull that?" The fox nodded, while Naruto had to endure a voice shrieking in his head. "You dare use a fox like a common mule? It's all I got. What? Is it your time of the month?" During his talks with Kyuubi, Naruto had actually found out that it was a she. And while she did allow Naruto to use the fox summonings, she didn't approve of the way he sometimes used them. "I'll get you for that when the seal weakens dash. You'll eat me alive and destroy Konoha blah blah blah. Got anything original?" Kyuubi muttered as she settled into her cage. Naruto turned to the fox. "I'm sorry to use you like this. If one of my other summons could, I would use them." "No need. It is an honor to help you. Our last mortal summoner was a fraud anyways. He just wanted to use us to rule the world." Naruto nodded as he helped hook the fox up. Eren was helping the family pack and load the cart. As they hopped on, Naruto created 3 clones, and all 4 of them started to push the cart while the fox pulled. Eren stayed in the cart to look out for trouble. Naruto looked up at his cousin. "You know you could help?" "I am. I'll look out for trouble while you with the muscles push." Naruto mumbled about lazy cousins, while his clones nodded. 2 hours later, the cart, minus the fox summon, rolled into the town. There, Naruto and Eren bid farewell to the family as they headed to the local bar. Naruto glanced at his reflection in a window of a shop they passed. He had really changed in 2 years. His lack of daily ramen had led him to grow by an incredible amount, while his weights and other training had given him a more muscular physique. He wasn't ripped, but he wasn't a twig either. After leaving Yuzu, his training had increased. He now had 700 pounds of weights on, 125 per limb, and 200 on his chest. With them, he was about as fast as Lee had been with his weights. Without them, he would have beat out Lee for speed without his weights. He had also signed summoning contracts for dragons to give him firepower and flight, and Kyuubi had already given him the fox contract. His elemental training now made him a master of wind jutsu, but his lightning jutsus were still lacking. Worse still, Kyuubi refused to give her power willing, except if Naruto's life depended on it. As for his other jutsus, Naruto had about 100 D and C ranked jutsus, 20 B ranked jutsus, 5 A ranked jutsus, and 2 S jutsu that were still in progress. He had gotten the basics of Hiraishin, but had yet to be able to go more than a few feet one time. Basically, it was control that he was lacking. As for the other jutsu, it was another thing his father was working on. Flashback. "I think I've got it," Naruto yelled, as he and 2 clones concentrated on creating their new technique. Suddenly, a Rasengan began to form in his hand. A whistling sound joined the thrum, and wind began to form around it, creating blades. Soon, Naruto was holding what looked like a giant shuriken of chakra and wind. Then it cut out and faded away. Naruto slumped to the ground, exhausted. It's too much. I can't control it. Aren sighed. The problem is Kyubi. You remember what she said? Yeah, I only have half her chakra. Without it, her yang chakra overwhelms my control and disrupts it. Naruto said as he splashed Clawed water on his head. Right. Your control is better by miles, but it will never be perfect until Kyubi's chakra is complete. Flashback ends. Naruto sighed as he followed Aren into the bar. He had sent a letter to Tsunade about that, asking if she knew. Her reply was that Jiraiya would know, and to ask him. Jiraiya's reply to his letter was that he had the Yin chakra stored away, but couldn't give it to Naruto yet, because Naruto couldn't control Kyubi's power. Without controlling her power, Naruto could lose control of a fully powered and restored Kyubi, and she could shatter the seal. Naruto sat down at table, while Aren went to the bar. He came back with 2 cups of juice. Pineapple for him, and apple for Naruto. Naruto glared at his juice, and then up at Aren, who was taking a drink. Aren sighed as he saw Naruto's glare. What? You know, I'm a 15-year-old. I don't need to drink a cup of juice everywhere we go. But it's so good for you, with all the nutrients. Besides, there was nothing else but sake and herbal tea. You're not old enough to drink, and you said you hate herbal tea. Naruto was about to retort when a small poof of smoke appeared next to Aren. It was a small white tiger cub who had a leather pouch attached to its back. It came over to Naruto and jumped into his lap. Lady Hinata has a letter for you. Naruto smiled as he stroked the tiger's head and removed the scroll from the pouch. Thanks, Shima. The tiger disappeared as Naruto unrolled the scroll. Naruto-kun. Thanks again for the tiger summoning contract. It really helped with me being able to send you a message whenever I wanted to, instead of waiting for Jiraiya-sama. Shima is so cute. He sometimes sleeps on my bed with me at night. Things have been going well. Kiba-kun finally made Chunin. He was really upset when me and Shino-kun made Chunin last year, and he didn't. Sakura wanted me to tell you that she's completed her studies with Tsunade-sama, although she is still her apprentice. She wanted to know if the rumors about you are even true, that you are capable of killing 5 men without even using a jutsu. Ino is the same. I think they are becoming your fangirls. Lee-kun, Niji and Isan, and Tintin came back from a border patrol mission. They said that in one town, they saw a statue that had been dedicated to you and Aren by the townspeople. You are becoming quite the hero, aren't you? The village is still in an uproar from what happened 2 weeks ago. Apparently, a Chunin was caught painting obscenities on the Uchiha district wall. Tsunade merely forced him to do D-ranked missions for a while, causing the civilians to be angry. Things are still tense here. I fear the village may soon explode in civil war. I'm sorry to put a damper on the mood. I must finish this letter now, as I need to train with O2. He's helping me finish perfecting my new move. I hope to be able to show it to you when you return. Love, Hinata Hyuga. Naruto smiled as he rolled the scroll up and placed it into a storage scroll specifically marked Hinata. He smiled as he remembered her letter after he had sent her the tiger contract and the instructions on it. She had been so happy about it, and sent him a long letter that had to be delivered by one of the older tiger cubs. Naruto began to think about what would happen when he returned. Tsunade had informed him almost a month later, when the council had decided he should know of it. He had almost dropped dead at the sight of the letter telling him he could return home one day. Of course, he had to wait for the team to finish training, which could take years, but to Naruto, it didn't matter. All that did matter was that he could at least come home. Eventually, Naruto came out of his thoughts as he noticed a disturbance a few tables over. Some drunken fools were busy trying to hook up with a woman wearing a large cloak. Her face was mostly shadowed by her hood, but Naruto could tell she was annoyed by their attention. He sat back, planning to leave the situation be, until one of the men went a little too far. He reached out and grabbed her hand, saying, "Listen, you little tramp. I don't care what you say. You're going to entertain us. Let me go," she yelled, her voice musical, but marred by the anger and slight fear in it. The man merely laughed and started to drag her to her feet when a hand clasped itself on his shoulder. She said, "Let go." With that, Naruto swung the man around and out through the door, followed by his 2 companions. They all stumbled to their feet as Naruto walked out. "You bum, don't you know not to mess with us? We're the Sanzoka brothers." Naruto's eyebrow over his left eye raised up a bit. "Really? The infamous Sanzoka brothers, who prey on weak and innocent travelers who are all alone. Infamous might, but you little wretch, will be having your apology and that sword there." The bandit took a step forward, then suddenly stopped as he felt an amazing amount of killer intent come off the man in front of him. "This sword is the legacy of my family. It is the treasure of Yuzu. It is a sword that belongs only in the hands of one who truly knows what it means to wield it, and you will not defile it." With a roar, Naruto disappeared, reappearing with his blade drawn and crimson blood coating it. Just as suddenly the man's throat spurted blood, and he fell to the ground. Naruto turned to the other two. "Eight of you want my blade?" They both shook their heads as they backed up. Naruto flicked the blade to one side, spraying the blood on it to the ground, before cleaning it with a cloth. He tossed the cloth on the dead man, as his two companions were now tiny dots with a huge dust cloud. Eren came out, shaking his head. "You didn't really have to kill him, did you?" he dared suggest to wielding Yuzu Aizu. "You know I won't stand for that, unless the person is someone I trust." "Yeah, but he was a nobody. You could have just beaten him up and let him go. And then he comes back with 50 of his buddies, and we have to fight all of them. More than likely, to the death. Seriously, why do you find a need to kill like this? You didn't used to be like that. Remember that old man we found? All butchered in his own home? I have no respect for people like that, who take lives so willingly for their own gain. They don't deserve the air they breathe." "Yeah, but Dash, please, may I know your names?" The girl Naruto had saved came out after them. She glanced at the body and pulled back slightly. Naruto created a shadow clone, which dragged the body away, out of town. "Sorry about that. It's a personal problem of mine," Naruto said, as he sheathed his sword and bowed. "I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, or you may have heard of me as the Black Fox." The girl nodded and turned to Eren, who suddenly had a very surprised look on his face. "And you, sir? Is something the matter?" Eren just stood there, looking like he had seen a ghost. "Flower? Flower Angelius?" The girl was somewhat startled, and a wary look entered her sky-blue eyes. "How do you know my name?" "Only two other people know my name. You don't recognize me?" "It's me, Eren." The girl's face became shocked, and she lowered her hood, revealing a girl of 16, with long black hair and tan skin. She was incredibly beautiful, in an angelic way. /N. This is actually a second OOC by Alan Pike. He gave me her for a reason. Anyone care to guess why? Eren? Is that you? Eren simply nodded as he stepped forward. Flower smiled happily, and with a shout of joy, glomped onto him. The two swung around, hugging and laughing. Naruto just stood there completely confused. Did I miss something?" Eren smiled as he stroked her face. "I can't believe you're alive. When that rogue ninja attacked and we got separated, I thought I'd never see you again." "Me too. I was so scared, I didn't know what to do. And then I started hearing these rumors about someone like you wandering the country. So I tried to track them down to see if it was you." "Hey, why am I the only one out of the loop here?" Naruto had become an angry, big-headed version of himself, with a throbbing vein and raised, clenched fist. Flower chuckled nervously, while Eren chuckled in amusement. It was funny when Naruto did that. "Sorry, cuz. Naruto, meet Flower Angelius, my childhood friend," and, well, he became embarrassed and blushed a little. Flower was blushing too. Naruto calmed down and smirked. "She's your girlfriend, isn't she?" "Well, nothing was official, but we acted like a couple, so yeah, I guess you could call us that." Naruto's smirk became broader. "I so have you, for all the times you keep teasing me about Hinata. From now on, no more teasing." Then he bowed to Flower again. "It is wonderful to meet someone close to my cousin." Flower smiled and curtsied. "It is an honor to meet a relative of Eren's. By the way, where is your father?" Eren sighed and looked around. "It might be better to talk about things elsewhere. I haven't told Naruto anything about you, because I thought you were dead and didn't want to bring up painful memories." They both nodded and set out to the nearest hotel. Several minutes later, they were gathered in a hotel room. Naruto leaned against the wall, while Eren flipped a chair around and sat in it backwards. Flower removed her cloak to reveal a slim frame, clothed in a white shirt with an angel symbol on it, a pink miniskirt, and blue pants. Her shirt had strange flaps in the back, where her shoulder blades were. She sat on the bed and nodded to Naruto. How much does he know of your past? And why are you so older than you were when last I saw you? On site. He knows about the Piku and my family. As for my age, I'll tell you in a bit. I think it's time we caught Naruto and you up to speed. Arin turned to his cousin. To put it simply, Flower is an angel. To be more precise, she's an outcast angel. Naruto raised an eyebrow in skepticism. An angel? With a nod from Arin, Flower closed her eyes. Suddenly, a pair of brown wings pushed out of the flaps of the shirt and spread out behind her like she was stretching. Then they lowered behind her. Naruto gaped in amazement. Okay, now I believe. Arin smiled. You see, the Pika tribe actually had neighbors. A clan of angels who had taken it upon themselves to fight demons. And fight they did. At first, they only fought demons that were truly evil, bent on destroying life and causing pain and suffering. But as time went, they began to make no distinctions. Soon, demons like Haya, who simply wished to survive, were being hunted down and killed. The Piku were slightly outraged, as they knew not all demons were evil and were part of this world. But they did nothing so as not to incur their neighbor's wrath. All that changed with me and Flower. He smiled at her, and she smiled back as she retracted her wings. Then he turned back to Naruto. The newest angels, who took the form of little children, would sometimes come play with kids of the Pika tribe. When I was 4, I met Flower. Well, we hit right off and became good friends. Flashback. Hey, where are you? A 7-year-old Arin stumbled through some trees, looking for his friend. He heard a giggle, but couldn't find her. Eventually, he looked up and saw her standing on a tree branch. Found you, Arin shouted happily. Flower giggled again, before spreading her wings and flying down. The two raced off happily yelling as they explored the forest together. Flashback ends. As time went by, our feelings became somewhat more, even if we didn't admit it. We couldn't because to the Angles, it would be an abomination for us to be together. Arin sighed as he looked down. Flower's always been real kind. She was an incredible fighter, but she absolutely hates violence. When she was out on a training mission to go after a flock of bird demons, her sensei wounded a demon which took the form of a golden eagle. He ordered her to finish it, while he went after the other demons in the flock. Flower started to speak, her voice soft with sadness. She looked up to me with an eye that overflowed with fear. She tried to escape, but the wound was too much for her. So, I did something that no angel would ever consider doing. I took the demon and healed it, but my sensei caught me and took us both back to the clan. I was charged with heresy, and my punishment was to have the demon sealed in me. Flashback. Flower screamed in pain as the seal took effect. The golden eagle beside her began to vanish, its powers disappearing into her. Her pure white wings turned brown, and her blonde hair became black. As the seal finished, her sensei came over her. You are a disgrace. You are now an outcast angel. Leave this place and never return. Flower cried, in pain and despair. Flashback ends. So, what happened next? Naruto asked, coming over and sitting on the floor. Flower looked up, a smile on her face. Arin found me, crying and alone on the border of the Pika's camp. He brought me back and I told him everything. His family agreed to take me in and made me an unofficial part of the family. Her smile faded. When the angels found out I was being sheltered, they demanded my execution. The Piku elders argued for a long time, and Arin and his family were among the few to defend me. Eventually, the elders said that it would go against everything they stood for, so they told the angels that they would protect me since I was a guest. The angels were furious and broke off any contact after that. Arin sighed. Shortly after, the plague struck. Without the healing powers of the angels, the Pika fell. He went with us, and we traveled together for several months. It was then that we finally admitted how much we care for each other. They both smiled at each other, and for a moment, Naruto envisioned it was him and Hinata. He nodded. So, how did you get separated? Arin sighed. About a year afterwards, when we were in the Land of Fire, a rogue Jounin from Suna attacked. He caused us to be separated. Inodid. I ran like Arin's dad told us to, but then I tripped and fell into a river. By the time I was able to get out of it, I was many miles away. I tried to find them again, but we never crossed paths. My dad finished the ninja off, and we looked for 2 days. But when we didn't find her, my dad said we could get help in Yuzu. We found it completely destroyed, and my father snapped. Arin focused on E. He told me to find you and lead a new life, one that would restore the Uzumaki clan. Then he left for IWA. I heard he killed himself after assassinating the Tsuchikage. Flower put a hand on Arin's arm. I'm sorry. Arin smiled and took her hand. Then he sighed. Now as to why I am this old. Naruto perked up and turned to Arin. He sighed and placed a hand on his left arm. About 9 months after me and my dad separated, I ran into a sick man who had trapped a lesser demon hybrid. It was a cross between a wolf and cheetah. You mean Haya, right? Naruto asked. Yeah, he was just torturing it. No for a mission or for revenge. Just because he wanted to. I almost killed him, but I didn't. He managed to flee while I turned to the demon. It was mortally wounded, and there was nothing I could do. This is more for your benefit, since Naruto knows this. He sighed and pulled up the sleeve of his shirt to reveal a tattoo of a cheetah head in mid-snarl and a wolf head in mid-howl. He performed a sealing ceremony on me, using his powers. He sealed himself in me to live. But because he was near death, he screwed it up enough that he almost killed me. He would have, if it wasn't for what happened next. He was shocked, and Naruto's mouth was open. Eren sighed. As I lay there, I suddenly felt this overwhelming presence. And suddenly, this light came over me, and this voice began to speak. It told me, because you have done good and pure deeds you life, and did not choose these circumstances, I will let you live. Besides, I have a purpose for you. Suddenly, I woke up. When I did, I felt this rush in my head. And then the voice spoke again. I have given you both a blessing and a curse. You have become my champion here on Earth. You will be one of the fastest beings alive, but your strength and some of your youth are forfeit. Now go and live wisely. Eren indicated his body. My guess, Cammy saved me. She gave me this. 6 wings suddenly ripped from the back of his shirt. These were pure white. Naruto looked at them in awe. Eren sighed as he retracted the wings. But in doing so, I lost 10 years of my life, physically. That's why I look so much older. Flower stood up and hugged him. Eren, I'm sorry. I wish I could have stayed by your side. Naruto, meanwhile, did the only logical thing his mind could think of. He had just learned that not only was his cousin in love with an outcast angel Jinchuriki, but was himself, in fact, a 6-winged angel. Logically, his brain came up with one solution. He fell back unconscious. Tsunade glanced around her office at the ninjas gathered there. Things were heating up even more in the village. The 4 Chunin in front of her had been caught actively discussing leaving the village and finding Naruto. They had wanted to pledge loyalty to him and serve him. She sighed. You do realize that what you were discussing was considered traitorous and could be considered an act against Konoha? The leader of the group, a man with goggle-like glasses and short, spiky brown hair, nodded. We do, but we think the actions of this village are far worse than ours. The other 3 nodded. Tsunade sat back. Naruto will return soon enough. The reports I have indicated Sasuke Uchiha has almost completed his training. When Naruto does return, he will just be treated as badly as before. Maybe worse. Tsunade shook her head. There's no denying the foolishness of the civilians here. But Naruto has dealt with it before. And when he comes back, he will have friends standing by him. Naruto will be better off than he was before. Do you mean it? Tsunade nodded. I mean it. I will do whatever it takes to ensure Naruto is happy here when he returns. Inside, she felt a stab of guilt. If anything, the first thing to happen to Naruto would be to fight Sasuke. And according to the reports, Sasuke was not far behind where his brother was before he slaughtered the Uchihas. She sighed mentally as she thought about the fight to come. I can only hope Naruto has gotten just as strong. She looked up at the 4 Chunin. Since nothing actually came of this, I'm putting you all under village arrest and assigning you all D-ranked missions for 2 months. I'm sorry. They all bowed their heads. We understand. You must do what you need to for the village." With that, they were escorted away by Anbu. When they were gone, Tsunade cursed and knocked a stack of papers aside. All this trouble because the villagers couldn't remove their assess from their heads to see the real Naruto. She sighed as she turned back to the window. "Old man, I don't know how you put up with this." XXXX Sasuke stood in the dojo of the Uchiha compound. In the 2 years since he had begun training, he had done little else. Tsunade refused to give him any missions that would allow him to leave the village's walls. So, he had worked around the village and spent most of his time poring over the jutsus that Danzo had provided. The last Uchiha exited the dojo and crouched next to the pond near the house's wall. He glanced at his reflection. The Sasuke he saw wasn't much different than the one from 2 years ago. He now a black short-sleeved shirt with the Uchiha crest on the back and a pair of black pants. He had wrapped his arms in bandages, which covered the storage seals on his arms. On his back, he carried a chikudo sheathed sideways in the back of his belt. Sasuke sighed as he sat back and pulled out another jutsu scroll. There were few left that he hadn't learned from. Basically, he knew every jutsu this village had that was a clan secret, wasn't on the Forbidden Scroll, and wasn't a unique jutsu that its creator refused to teach him. He began to ponder about some of the jutsus Danzo had given him, like the one he was looking at now. They certainly didn't seem like ones that even Root would know, especially that summoning contract he had signed. But Sasuke refused to give up free power that had been given to him. "This just means I'll be stronger to fight Itachi. Naruto, I hope you are prepared to meet your father, because I'll be sending you there when you get back." Suddenly, a ninja appeared next to Sasuke. It was Danzo's errand boy Sai. The pale-skinned youth smiled his weird smile at Sasuke. "Ready for your Kinjutsu session, Sasuke-san?" Sasuke nodded as he stood to his feet and pulled out his sword. "Let's go." XXX Naruto slowly opened his eyes, looking around. He found himself lying on the bed in the hotel room they had rented. He slowly sat up, with the wet rag on his head falling off. He looked at it, then up to see something he wasn't expecting. Aren and F-Flower were sitting in the chair Aren had been sitting in earlier. To be precise, Aren was sitting on the chair, while F-Flower was on his lap. The two were holding each other as they kissed lovingly. Naruto looked at them, his jaw dropping open and his sunglasses sliding down his nose. Inside, Kyubi was sniggering. "Looks like your cousin is pretty happy. Why don't you leave for a bit, so they can become reacquainted with each other?" "Yuero, Bakakitsune, shut up about crap like that. Make me." Naruto just sat there for a moment, then lay back down and entered his mindscape. He quickly found himself in front of the cage and looked up at the fox head peering at him through the bars. "Did you just say make me?" "Yes, so?" That has to be the most childish and stupid comeback that could have ever come out of the mouth of a giant Kitsune Biju. Naruto said simply, "Just shut up, you stupid, insignificant mortal worm." Naruto smiled as he had riled Kyubi up. It was one of the few things he liked to do, considering all the crap Kyubi had given him, whether intentional or not. "Why should I? I control this body and this mindscape. You got nothing." Naruto smirked as he crossed his arms. Kyubi suddenly glared at Naruto. "Do you take some perverse pleasure in torturing me?" Naruto glared up at her. "You know what? I do. Besides, if you think this is torture, you've seen nothing. I thought you have access to my memories?" "Yes, so dash. So maybe you should take a look at all the memories before you woke up. All the memories of loneliness and fear and frustration and utter despair I went through. After you've seen and lived the life I've had, then come talk to me about torture. Until then, shut your damn muzzle, Biju." With that, Naruto turned and walked off, leaving Kyubi standing there, slightly shocked. Never had Naruto talked to her like that. She knew the village hated him, but still, it couldn't have been that bad, could it? On a whim, she called up his memories and began to go through them. Naruto, only 5 and alone, stood outside a house, watching a family laugh and play together. The rain and wind continued to pour down on him, while the family was safe, warm, and happy. He brushed away the tears mingling with the rain and walked back to the box in the alley he was living in. Naruto, now 7, hid by a tree, watching a father and son play catch. The boy caught a difficult throw, and the dad smiled. "That's my boy," he hugged his son, while Naruto watched wishing he knew what it was like to have someone proud of him. Naruto, now 9 and in the academy, watched from the academy swing as the parents came and picked up their kids. One boy, who had gotten a paper cut, held his finger to his mom, who kissed it better. Naruto looked at the bruises and faint scars that hadn't yet healed from his sparring match against an older academy student. He slowly placed his arms around himself, imagining that it was his mom holding him and whispering that everything would be okay. Tears began to leak down his face as he looked up at the sky. "Mom, what happened? Didn't you want me?" Kyubi stopped and lay down. She huffed in annoyance. That just made him stronger, made him ready for what life held. But deep inside her soul, Kyubi felt a twinge of regret and sorrow. Naruto opened his eyes to see Rin and Flower snuggling, but not kissing anymore. He groaned to get their attention as he sat up. Flower slid out of Rin's lap and came over. "Feeling better?" "Yeah, I had a little chat with my tenant." Naruto's eyes widened as he realized that he just let slip his biggest secret. When Flower didn't respond, Naruto looked over at Rin. "You told her, didn't you?" Rin shrugged. "I thought she deserved to know." Flower smiled as she took Naruto's hand. "Don't worry. This just means we all have something in common. Now, if you were an angel too, we would practically be related." Naruto smiled as he stood and stretched. He glanced out the window, surprised to see it was already evening. He turned to the others. "Anyone else hungry? I've got a craving for some ramen and maybe some dango afterwards." Rin smiled, while Flower looked curious. "Ramen? What's that?" Naruto face planted in the ground. His muffled voice came up from his position. "Please, don't tell me in all the years you've been traveling that you have never, ever tasted ramen?" Rin smiled down at him. "Well, ramen is not high on the angel food list." Naruto sighed as he rolled over and leapt to his feet. "Then let's remedy the situation." Rin pulled Flower close, and they walked out behind Naruto. In a deserted cave, several leagues away, 9 figures phased into existence. They were insubstantial, nothing more than phantoms, and yet they looked at each other. One of them, with spiky hair and eyes that were rings around the pupils, began to speak. "What is the update on the Jinchurikis?" With the almost completely black eyes spoke. "We are still tracking the Nibi." "Yeah, she's a pain in the neck to find." A squat, bulky man spoke next. "We are making plans for Shikaku. He has recently been made Kazekage of Suna, which makes it that much harder to get at him." "Yeah, but it will be a chance to show off my art, said a tall-looking man with one eye visible and a long ponytail. "A/in, what is with that? Why does he say that?" Lastly, a tall man with red eyes with 3 tomos around the pupil spoke. "We are having trouble tracking the QB, but we have found the Yanbi and are moving in to trap it." The first figure nodded. "Very well. I will extend our resources into finding the QB. The rest of you, continue your present tasks." The figures disappeared. In the land of Earth, the tall figure with the red eyes opened them. He had a Konoha headband with a slash on it around his forehead, and raven black hair that was slightly long. Itachi Uchiha, the slaughterer of the Uchiha clan, looked at his partner. Kisame Hashigaki, missing Nin from Kiri, and one of the 7 Stradsmen, was taller, with blue, somewhat scaly skin and gills on his cheeks. He had short, blue hair that was spiky and stood straight up. His eyes were small, with almost black pinpricks for pupils. He picked up a long, heavy blade wrapped in bandages. "How much longer do we keep up this charade? Going after these Jinchurikis is really a pain." Itachi, in an almost completely emotionless voice, said, "Until they catch on to us, or they go after Naruto themselves. Until then, we keep up this charade." Kisame sighed as he looked to the east, where the tracks for the Yanbi led. "Well, time to get to work." The 2 missing ninja headed off into the night-covered forest. XX crouched down near a tree. Yujito knee panted as she looked around. There were no signs of her attackers, the men in black cloaks. She sighed as she settled down, allowing the Biju cat in her to control her senses and enhancing them. She was completely cut off from the Raikage and other Kumo ninja. The 2 men had attacked her over a month ago and kept trailing her, forcing her southward, away from friendly forces. She looked over her shoulder, checking the forest. "I can't keep this up forever. I need help." "Well, there is always that one Jinchuriki we heard about." "You mean the Black Fox?" "Exactly. He can help. Yujito looked back over her shoulder, then moved out, now moving south and fast. He was from Konoha, right? That's what the rumors were. But I don't think he's there anymore. I think he's in the land of rivers. How do you know? I can somewhat sense other Bijus in the world. It feels like QB is somewhere to the southeast. I would guess land of rivers or Suna. There, that's where we'll go. With that, Yujito headed off. About a week later, Naruto, Orin, and F-Flower were making their way through Suna and towards Bird Country. Naruto was somewhat lost in thought about his tenant. Ever since their argument, QB had become somewhat quieter. She would still roar and gripe, but not as much anymore. Naruto just shook his head and turned back to look at his cousin. You just like always. In the week since F-Flower had joined them, the two of them were hardly separated, and then for no more than how long it took for one of them to take a shower. Naruto smiled as he imagined himself and a certain lavender-eyed Kunoichi being the same way. Then he shook his head at the thoughts. Remember, even if I am returning home, there's no guarantee her dad would even let us be together. After thinking for a second, he smiled. But it's still nice to hope. Naruto was about to call back to them to hurry up when some unknown force became known to him. He stopped and quickly scanned around. Behind him, Orin and F-Flower were doing the same. What is it? Orin? F-Flower whispered to him. I don't know. It doesn't feel like anything I've experienced before. In Naruto's head, Kyuubi was sitting up. This power feels familiar, but it's different from what I felt all those years ago. They continued to look around as the power of the unseen force began to increase. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and the sky began to look like it was ripping apart in one place. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and a huge, white opening appeared in the sky. The trio jumped back as a figure fell from it. The figure yelled before crashing into the ground. Naruto drew his regular katana and rushed forward. Oren's nature armor formed around him as he full-wed Naruto. F-Flower concentrated, and a straight-bladed sword appeared in her right hand, while a voice echoed in her head. Be careful, young one. That power was greater than mine. Naruto appeared on the edge of a crater and looked down at a figure in the center of it. The figure was stirring and mumbling under his breath. Don't even give me a warning. They just tell me I'm needed, give me back the Master Sword, and drop me in the middle of nowhere. Not only that, but they drop me from the sky. This is the last time I go off saving the world again. The figure got to its feet, dusting off the green tunic and cream-colored pants he was wearing. His hands were covered in brown gauntlets, with a leather bracer over the left arm. Under the tunic was a shirt of chainmail, and then a long-sleeved shirt that matched the pants. He had on brown, soft leather boots. Over his spiky, dirty blonde hair was a strange-looking green hat, which hung over the four-pointed metal shield he wore on his back. A blue sword hilt poked out behind the upper left corner of his shield. A blue and gold-trimmed scabbard poked out the lower right corner. The figure finished wiping himself off and began to look around. Where is this? It looks like Gerudo Desert. It's called the Land of Winds. Naruto said. The figure spun around, drawing his sword with his left hand and his shield with the right. Naruto found himself looking into blue eyes, just as vivid as his. The man's eyes darted from Naruto to Orin to F-Flower, then back to Naruto. Okay, this is interesting, the figure said as he slowly edged back. Naruto tilted his head. I've never seen a shield or sword like that before. Where are you from? That way, we can know who's invading. The man's eyes widened. Invading? Yeah, right. I'm not entirely here by choice. Oren slowly eased out of his stance. Maybe we should talk. It seems we're getting off on the wrong foot. Naruto glanced at Oren. You do remember this guy fell from the sky, right? With the whole sky darkening and vortex in the sky? Oren nodded. Yeah, but I think he would have attacked us by now if he was a threat. He turned to the man who had gotten out of the crater in the opposite side. I'm Oren Piku Uzumaki, and this is my cousin, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. And this is my girlfriend, F-Flower Angelius. The man looked at each of them again and eased out of his stance, but kept his weapons in hand. My name's Link. Just Link. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Link? That's it? Link nodded. Yeah, that's it. Well, Link, care to explain what the whole falling from the sky bit was about? Link sighed. If you promise not to kill me, or call me crazy, Besides, I think I need your guys' help, since I have no idea where I'm from. But let's get comfortable first. With that, the four of the all warily sheathed their weapons and dispelled their armor, for those who had some. They gathered away from the crater and sat down. Link began his tale. A/N. This is Twilight Princess version Link. Where I come from, there is a tale about a hero, a legendary hero who saved our land from being overrun by an evil king who wielded dark magic. He utilized an ancient and powerful sword called the Master Sword. This is that blade. He slowly unsheathed it and held it up for them to see. It was a 3-foot-long blade, which shined in the sunlight. Near the hilt, the blade bulged slightly. On the bulge section was an emblem of 3 golden triangles, which formed into one larger triangle. The entire hilt was blue, with a pair of up-swept wing-like guards. The hilt was blue, with green stripes crisscrossing it. A blue pommel stone completed the half-foot-long hilt. Naruto raised an eyebrow. So, you wield the sword of this ancient hero? Link sighed. Well, to be more precise, I'm a reincarnation of that hero. You see, he defeated the evil king, and then returned back to his home. The evil king was sealed away in an alternate realm, which was a shadow version of my homeland, Hyrule. There he waited until he was able to grow strong again. Then, using a minion whose body he resided in, he launched a new attack on my home. I was called forth to end this evil by the 3 goddesses who created Outland. He drew the triangle emblem on his sword into the sand, then pointed to each triangle. Then the goddess of power, Faeror, the goddess of courage, and Nereyu, the goddess of wisdom. They created Hyrule and everything and everyone in it. Their power resides in an artifact that looks exactly like this, called the Triforce. Throughout history, there were those who were called upon to wield each goddess power. I am the one who carries the power of Faeror. The evil king of old, Ganondorf, wields the power of Din. And the ruler of Hyrule, Princess Zelda, wields the power of Nereyu. Link leaned back against a rock jutting out of the sand. I was accompanied by an imp from the alternate realm, who was banished. As it turned out, she was the transformed princess of the Twilight Realm. She helped me gather ancient artifacts to invade the Twilight Realm, and Ganondorf's puppet, then return to Hyrule, free Zelda, and finish Ganondorf. Afterwards, I put up my sword and expected to be able to live in peace. Until a few days ago, the goddess have called me out again, but I don't know why they sent me here. Naruto sniggered. You know, for ultra-powerful goddess, they seem pretty stupid, giving the bad guy power and not telling their hero what he's up to. Not real bright. Link sighed. It's true. Sometimes it seems real annoying. I get caught up in something I know nothing about. Naruto nodded, then looked at the Master Sword. Hey, can I see that for a second? I'll let you see my sword here. Naruto unsheathed his regular katana and held it out to Link. The green-clad hero nodded and held out the hilt of the Master Sword, but declined to see the katana. Naruto barely grasped the Master Sword when agonizing pain shot through him. He fell back, releasing the sword, but his other hand clenched the katana. The last thing he heard before he became unconscious was an agonized howl in his mind. Then all was darkness. Link grabbed the Master Sword and pulled it away, while F-Flower knelt next to Naruto and began checking him over. Link found himself yanked up by Iran. What did you do to my cousin? I don't know, the Master Sword shouldn't have acted like that, unless he was evil. Iran put Link down. Naruto's not evil, but I can't say the same for his tenant. Link looked up in surprise. Huh, tell you later. How is he? He's fine, other than being unconscious. But something weird is happening with the Kyuubi's chakra. It feels like it's fluctuating. She ran her hand over the seal, her hand glowing with the green chakra of a diagnostic jutsu. Suddenly, the red chakra of Kyuubi, along with a strange yellow energy, emerged from the seal and covered the black katana in Naruto's left hand. The blade began to fluctuate and morph before the astonished eyes of those watching. When it was done, they gasped in amazement. Link studied the katana and then his sword. How is this possible? XX Naruto slowly awoke, finding himself in his mindscape. He slowly stood up and looked around. Normally, the sewer walls would give him a bad vibe, as if they were infused with Kyuubi's evil. But Naruto felt nothing now as he wandered the halls. He came to the giant room with the bars, expecting to see the giant Shikitsune glaring at him. But there was no one there. Kyuubi? Hey Kyuubi? Baka Kitsune, Naruto yelled. His voice echoed through the empty cage. But just as he turned to leave, he heard something he wasn't expecting. There was a small sniffle from inside the cage, like someone was crying. He turned back around but saw nothing. Kyuubi? You in there? Naruto slowly entered the cage, his eyes darting around in case this was a trap. But nothing happened until he was a distance into the cage. Suddenly, he came across a huddled figure. It was a girl, roughly Naruto's age. She lay on the ground, supporting her sleeve with one arm, while her other one wiped tears from her face. She was wearing a red kimono with a gold emblem of a fox with 9 tails on it. She had long red hair, which fell to her shoulders. Naruto slowly approached her. Hello? Who are you? The girl stiffened and tried to keep her face away from Naruto. But he came around in front of her and knelt down. He found himself looking into a tear-stained face, with crimson eyes that had black slits for pupils. Whisker marks similar to Naruto's adorned her face. It all clicked in Naruto's head. Kyuubi, he whispered. Kyuubi looked up at him and whimpered. Please kill me now. Naruto reeled back, as if he had been struck. He looked at the girl in front of him in utter amazement. This was Kyuubi? This was the giant 9-tailed kitsune who had caused him such grief through his life. It couldn't be. He looked around. I'm not going to fall for this. Kyuubi, where are you? The girl sobbed as she looked at the ground, tears staining the floor. Kit, it is me, she managed to say through her sobs. Naruto looked down at her. Kyuubi, that really is you, isn't it? She just sobbed in response. Naruto just gaped at her in amazement. What the heck is going on here? Kyuubi managed to control her crying enough to look up at him. What are you waiting for? Do it. Naruto shook his head in confusion. Do what? Kill me, take your revenge for all I've done. Kyuubi burst into fresh tears, and her arm gave way. But as she fell, she felt arms grab her and pull her up. She looked up to see Naruto holding her while he glanced around. Finally, he made a chair appear and pulled her over to it. He sat her down in it and stepped back. I'm not doing anything until we figure out what the heck is going on here. Got it? He said this a little harshly, and Kyuubi flinched before nodding. Naruto sighed as he took a deep breath. All right. Last thing I remember was taking that sword, the Master Sword, from Link's hand. Then I'm hit by agonizing pain. Before I blacked out, I heard you howl in pain. What happened? And what is with this form? Kyuubi snuffled a bit. I'm not sure. I was sleeping when I suddenly felt this pain shoot through me. It felt like when your father was sealing me in you, because I felt like I was being ripped apart. I thought I was going to die, and then it stopped. When I came to my senses, I felt horrible. I saw the cage, and I saw my form, and I was just horrified all of a sudden. I felt so horrible because of everything that happened to me. I turned into this form, and I thought I would feel better. But the memories just kept bombarding me. She started to shake and slowly wrapped her arms around herself. I attacked Konoha because I was bored, because I wanted to have some fun and cause bloodshed and mayhem. Now I hate myself. I hate myself, she suddenly shouted, causing Naruto to jump back. She leaned forward and started rocking back and forth. Your dad and all those people I killed, they didn't have to die. They didn't need to. And then all those who lost a loved one. Because of me. Because I'm evil. All that suffering for my amusement. All your suffering because of my actions. She looked up at him. That's why I want you to kill me. In my life. Take your revenge and help me to begin to atone for what I've done. She moved her hands so she could look at them while they were shaking. She just stared at them, waiting to feel that blade enter her, waiting for her end. And then she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. Kyuubi, I have no idea what is going on, but right now something big has happened. Until we sort it out, we can't make any rash decisions. If I do this, if I kill you, I can't take that decision back. If this had been any other time, I would have gladly killed you. But I just can't right now. Kyuubi looked up at him, surprise written across her face. Naruto sighed. I want to get all the facts straight. I'm going to talk to Link about what happened, provided it wasn't some type of trap. After we've figured out what is going on, we'll make a decision. Okay? QB slowly nodded, and Naruto pulled his hand back. Good. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've some business to attend to. He turned and headed to the cage door when a small voice echoed behind him. Thank you, Naruto-sama. Naruto turned to see QB sitting in the chair, her head bowed. Naruto sighed as he left the cage door. Well, somebody has some explaining to do, Naruto said as he reached out towards his physical body. With a sigh of relief, he found that his body was already set for him to regain consciousness, which he did. Naruto groaned as he sat up. Almost immediately, Rin was beside him. Naruto, you okay? Naruto nodded slowly. I'm fine, maybe a little stiff, but that's nothing compared to what QB's going through. He looked at Link, who was a short distance away, the Master Sword back in its sheath. Link held back, kept at bay by the glares Rin kept sending him. Flower came and knelt next to Naruto and handed him a canteen of water. He nodded his head in thanks and took a mouthful. After swallowing, he turned back to Link. What happened? What did your sword do to me? Link looked a little sheepish and curious at the same time. Well, the Master Sword is known as Evil's Bane. Basically, no one of a pure evil nature can actually touch the blade without dying. When you touched it, I guess it sensed evil in you, so it reacted. Naruto looked down for a moment, then looked back at Link, who had cocked his head. Who's QB, by the way? Naruto sighed. Well, you need to know if you're going to help me solve what's going on. When I was born, a giant nine-tailed Kitsune Biju named QB attacked my home. My father, the leader of the village, used a technique to seal QB inside of me. She was the evil in me that the sword detected and tried to destroy. Rin glanced at him in surprise. Tried? Naruto nodded. Tried. When I finally found her, she had taken a human form. She was bawling her eyes out and begged me to kill her for all she had done. She told me that whatever happened to us had made her feel like she was being ripped in half. He turned to Link. Any thoughts as to why she's not dead and is so different from her usual, I'll break free, eat you, and kill everyone you know routine? Link shrugged. She must not have been entirely evil. Somewhere in her, there must be enough of a good nature to sustain her. Naruto's eyes widened. So what you're telling me is... Link smiled. The Master Sword purified the evil nature of this QB, but didn't kill her. There's not an evil bone left in her body. Naruto turned inward. You hear that, QB? There was silence before QB's voice came through. It was softer than before, and there was still a lot of despair in it. Yes, I heard, but it doesn't change my actions from before. I still committed horrible crimes. Naruto sighed. Well, QB wasn't cheered up by that. She still thinks I should kill her. Why don't you? Link asked. Both Rin and Flower glanced uneasily at him. Naruto sighed. Normally, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. But you didn't see her. There was absolute regret and remorse in her eyes. She was so horrified by what she had done. Even her true form disgusted her. I just don't know what to do. Flower placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. I think that we should let QB live. She has done truly horrible things in the past. But now, she has a chance to do good things through you. Her death will not be enough to even begin to cover what she has done. Even helping you, it might not be enough to earn her forgiveness. But it will be a start. Rin nodded. Makes sense, cuz I don't think you could kill in cold blood like that anyways. Naruto turned back inward to QB. QB, I can't make this decision. This is your life, so it should be your decision. QB was silent for several minutes. Finally, she spoke up. Naruto-sama, while I truly feel that my life should be ended, Flower has a valid point. If in small way, me helping you can aid in making up for my crimes, then I will. For now, I will give you all the help I can. Naruto nodded mentally. Very well. I have one request, though. Stop with the Sama bit. It's annoying. QB giggled a bit, while Naruto turned his mind back outward. QB says she wants to help me now. They all nodded, as Naruto stood up and stretched. He glanced down at his left hand. Hey, where's my sword? I remember it still being in my hand when I lost consciousness. Flower and Link suddenly seemed a little nervous, while Rin just sighed and pointed to the ground near where Naruto had been laying. Naruto turned, and his mouth fell open as he looked upon the sword. Before, it had been a regular, black cloth-wrapped ninja katana. Not anymore. The sword was still a katana, but unlike any seen before in the elemental nations. The blade looked like it had been forged from pure silver and gleamed in the sunlight. Down near the hilt, the Triforce emblem could be seen just above the hilt guard. The hilt guard was still round, but there were now two wing guards that swept up above the curved edge and below the cutting edge. The entire hilt was blue steel, with green cloth wrapped around the hilt to give the wielder a better grip. Naruto looked at it, then back at the Master Sword in Link's sheath. What? What happened? Aren shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. After we got the Master Sword away from you, Kyuubi's chakra, along with some yellow energy, leaked out and surround the blade. Then it turned into that. Link put in his 2 cents. The extra energy is similar to that which resides in the Master Sword. I think it was residual energy from when it attacked. Kyuubi, right? Her energy began to transform the blade, and the Master Sword's energy influenced the transformation. I guess you now have your own version of the Master Sword. Naruto slowly reached out, and after a moment's hesitation, picked it up. Sudden warmth spread through his arm, and he felt like the blade was a missing part of him. He slowly held it up, admiring how the sunlight played on the blade. Then, he noticed another symbol on the opposite side of the blade from the Triforce symbol. It was a fox head that looked like it was howling. Naruto looked at it and gently touched it. This blade, it feels so right in my hands. But how? Link shrugged. I felt the same with the Master Sword, even though I had never touched it before in my life. I guess the same holds true for you with this version. Naruto nodded. Then he looked for the sheath to the sword. His eyes finally found a molten mess that Aren had been trying to hide. So, it destroyed the scabbard? As Aren nodded, Naruto shrugged. Well, it gives me an excuse to practice something my dad was famous for. But first, let's find somewhere to make camp. A few hours later, they were near the border with the Land of Fire and had set up camp amongst the trees. Aren, Flower, and Link were all chatting, while Naruto sat by himself with an ink bottle and brush. He pulled his coat off and dipped the pen into the ink bottle. He slowly began to draw a seal on his left forearm. After 30 minutes of concentration, he sealed the ink bottle up and laid the brush aside. On his forearm was a weapon seal, meant for storing weapons on the body. It was perfect for assassination missions when weapons would be confiscated and such. Naruto watched it dry, and when it had, he lifted his new weapon up. He held it over the seal and closed his eyes. Here goes nothing. He concentrated chakra into the seal, and in a puff, the sword disappeared into the seal. Naruto smiled, and then focused chakra into the seal again. The sword reappeared in perfect shape. Naruto smiled, sealed it away again, and then covered his left forearm in bandages before pulling his coat on again. He quickly joined the others. Aren smiled up at him. All done? Naruto nodded, and Link gave him a curious look. What did you do exactly? Naruto smiled as he began to explain. Well, we don't have this magic of your world. Instead, we have an energy in us called chakra. Not everyone can use it, but ninjas like us can mold chakra, and using hand signs, we perform various abilities and techniques that we call jutsus. What I did was called a sealing jutsu, and it allows somebody to seal anything with an ink seal. See? Naruto pulled up his left coat sleeve and nudged the bandages aside enough to show the seal. Link nodded. Interesting. It's sort of like this pouch I have hidden under my shield. Link reached back there and pulled out a bow, a/n. This is how I think Link carries around his huge freaking arsenal of weaponry. He set it down and began to pull more objects out. A massive spike-studded iron ball with chain, a bag of bombs, a pair of strange clawed gauntlets, a white and green boomerang, and several other weapons and devices. Flower and Naruto just stared at the array of weapons, while Aren whistled in admiration. Finally, Naruto was able to speak. Dude, there is this girl back in Konoha who is going to fall in love with you. She loves weapons. Link shook his head. Sorry, I'm already taken. Link pulled out a picture from a different pouch. It showed him standing next to a girl about his age with short, dirty blonde hair. She wore a white, sleeveless blouse and brown pants that ended below her knees. She had an incredible smile, and her green eyes were alight with happiness. Flower smiled at the picture. She looks nice. What's her name? Ilya. She's the daughter of the chief of our village. and has been my best friend since we were little. Link put the picture away. Naruto nodded. Well, I'd still be careful. I can think of 1 or 2 girls who will still come after you in Konoha. If you want to come with us, Link shrugged. Why not? I don't have anywhere else to go, and if I wasn't supposed to stay with you guys, I don't think I would have crashed near you. Eren smiled. Great, then you can train with us. I'd love to see what you can do with that sword of yours. Link smirked. Oh, I could do plenty with it. What about you? Eren sent him a smirk back. I may not carry a blade, but I've got a few tricks of my own. Naruto sighed. All right, the 3 of us will spar, but not till tomorrow. I'm still feeling off from earlier, and I think Kyuubi is too. He sighed as he leaned back against a tree and closed his eyes. In his mind, Kyuubi reassured him, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Kyuubi reassured him, but her voice did sound weaker than it should have been. Naruto went into his mindscape and found her in the cage still. He looked around and shook his head. If we're going to be working together, you'll need better living conditions. With a simple thought, the inside of the cage disappeared and reappeared as an apartment. It had 3 rooms and simple furniture. He looked over at Kyuubi, who was still a 15-year-old girl. Why do you look like that? Because it's how old you are. Normally, I can take whatever age or form I want, but because of the seal, I'm forced to look the same aga as you are. She said this, while her eyes drooped a bit, and she leaned against a wall. Naruto came over. You're not okay, are you? Kyuubi slowly shook her head. The transformation took a lot out of me. I'll be back to normal in a few days, but I lost a lot of power. Naruto gently guided her over to one of the rooms and laid her on the bed inside. Rest. If we're going to be working together, I want you in your best shape. Kyuubi looked up at him. Why are you being so considerate of me? I'm nothing but your servant now. Naruto shook his head. No, I don't want a servant, Kyuubi. I want a comrade in arms, an ally who will always have my back. Kyuubi slowly nodded. Then that is what I'll be. Thank you, Naruto. Naruto gave her a small smile. When you're ready, go ahead and decorate how you want. For now, just rest. He couldn't understand how he was able to act so easily around her. By all rights, he should still be furious and hate her, but seeing how she had acted earlier, and seeing her now, sleeping peacefully, Naruto couldn't help but just want to help her. Treat her better. Before he could stop himself, he whispered, Sleep tight, Nei-chan. He suddenly stiffened and disappeared, returning to reality. Nei-chan. Why'd I call her that? She's not related to me. She's Kyuubi. He shook his head and slowly banished his thoughts, slipping into a light nap. 6 months later, Danzo was not happy. Not happy at all. When he saw the Kyuubi Jinchuriki leave, he felt sure it would be for the last time. But Orochimaru's minions had failed to secure him. Now, the brat was out there, waiting to return home. Danzo had been furious to hear this from the Hokage, but it kept it behind a mask of indifference. Now, over 2 years later, he sat in his office, thinking over his situation. Shortly after he had learned that Naruto was still alive, Orochimaru had sent him a report, stating that the boy was to be left alone. He would be useful in strengthening Sasuke. Sasuke would kill the boy and gain the Manjikyu Sharingan, and be that much more powerful. Danzo sighed as he looked over a report given to him by Sai. Sasuke had returned the last of the special jutsus the root had given him. In fact, they were jutsus from Orochimaru, who wanted Sasuke to know them before he took over the boy's body. With the return of the last scroll, that could only mean one thing. He's done. Danzo sighed as he realized that this meant the return of the Jinchuriki. This would certainly cause a stir in Konoha. Almost the entire ninja population were in a near state of mutiny since Naruto's banishment. The civilian population had almost revolted against the Hokage, who had barely punished those few ninjas who had been caught defacing the Uchiha district and a few public places. Something like Naruto's return very well could send Konoha into the flames of civil war, except for the part where Sasuke destroys the Jinchuriki. Danzo smiled at the thought. Perhaps he was blowing things out of proportion. Naruto couldn't be that much stronger. And even if he was, there was no way he could defeat Sasuke now. Danzo smiled as he leaned back in his chair. What was he so upset about? He now realized he had been worried about nothing. Hinata easily struck the target points on the dummy, before delivering a final blow which dented the very center of the dummy's chest. She stepped back as she examined her work. In real combat, the shinobi on the other side of her strikes would have been on the ground, severely wounded or dead. She nodded in satisfaction before she felt a wave of exhaustion hit her. She went over to a bench and picked up a towel and a cup of soothing herbal tea. In the 2.5 years since Naruto had left, Hinata had continued to train, following her new resolve to be as strong as possible. With her increase in abilities came an increase in confidence. She was still kind and quiet, but she was no longer the timid mouse of before. She had decimated her opponents in her third Chunin exams, and came in second in the final rounds, earning her spot as a Chunin of Konoha. She had surpassed almost every member of the Hyuga clan, except for her father and cousin Niji, who was now a Jounin. If anything, she was the ideal candidate for heiress of the clan. She tossed aside her towel and picked up her jacket. She still wore the same type of pants, but now she wore a sleeveless black kunoichi top with a short-sleeved fishnet shirt over it. She had also grown her hair long, and it reached to the mid of her back. Her jacket was more body-conforming than her old one, and was a mixture of lavender and wit with no fur on the collar or wrists. She pulled it on, but left it open as she walked out of the dojo. She was going to meet Kiba and Shino to train for a while. After Naruto left, and with Sasuke on village arrest, the remaining Genin found themselves often partnered up with whoever was available. In time, the teams deteriorated, especially when they became Chunin. But she still found time to train with her friends and former teammates. She left the estate and slipped on a pair of black shinobi sandals before exiting the gate. Almost as soon as she had, a voice called out to her. Hinata the lavender-eyed kunoichi turned to see Sakura running up to her. Sakura had really matured over the years as well. She was now a strong medic ninja who didn't let anyone or anything but herself influence her. She wore a red vest shirt, black mini shorts under an even shorter skirt, and thigh-reaching black boots with open toes. A pair of bands covered her elbows. Her pink hair was shorter than before, and she wore a red-clothed headband on top of her head, like she did as a genin. Thanks to Tsunade's training, Sakura was the third best medic in Konoha, and one of the strongest as well. Sakura came over, a huge smile on her face. "Hinata, have you heard?" "Heard what, Sakura?" "Well, Sasuke finished his training. You know what that means?" Sakura's face was beaming. Hinata just stood there, her eyes wide in surprise. That means. Hinata couldn't even finish her sentence. Sakura smiled. "It means Naruto's coming home." Upon hearing those words, Hinata staggered back against the wall around the Hyuga estate. He's coming home," she whispered. Her face showed the absolute shock she felt at this statement. Her crush, no, the boy she was in love with, would finally be able to come home. In her mind, there was only one thing she could do. For the first time in 30 months, Hinata fainted due to Naruto-related events. Sakura managed to catch her as she pitched forward. She smiled at the reaction of her friend. "Glad to see some things never change." /N. "I know I just got finished saying how strong she was, but give me a break. I would think hearing that Naruto is coming home would knock her out, no matter how strong she was." Many miles away, just inside the border of the Land of Fire, a massive spar was underway. Naruto leapt to one side as Link swung down from an overhead strike. At that moment, Eren, fully armored, launched his own attack at Link. The Hylian hero dodged to one side, continued to roll around Eren, and leapt up, letting out a roar as he swung his blade in midair. His wooden replica of the Master Sword missed by centimeters as Eren rolled forward, away from the backslice attack. Naruto swung around, holding twin practice blades in his hands. His left sword whistled over Link's head, while the right-hand sword smashed against the Hylian shield. Link shoved at Naruto, knocking him back. Eren finished a set of hand signs. Pine Needle Saban Jutsu. Hundreds of pine needles arose from the ground and launched at Link. He immediately crouched, a shield held out front, and his blade held behind him. It glowed, and with a yell, he spun, releasing a wave of energy which knocked all the pine needles back. Link finished the great spin attack and stood at the ready, panting. Naruto wasn't panting as hard, but he was still panting. Eren wasn't, though, because of the high endurance given to him by Haya, his Biju. The three of them smiled at each other and dropped their stances. "That was a great workout," Naruto said, as he held both his swords in one hand and wiped his forehead with the other. Aren nodded as he released his armor. Link dropped the wooden sword and put his shield on his back. They slash in. I would love to know how he holds his shield back there and is able to draw it for combat. It's freaking cool. They made their way to their camp, where F-Flower was busy brewing some tea. She looked them over as they returned. All good? No injuries this time. I would hate to patch you up again like last time. Naruto, an embarrassed blush crossed his face. Hey, don't blame me because your boyfriend couldn't hold back his shield bash. If it wasn't for QB, I would still be in a cast. QB's voice echoes in his head. Glad I could help Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki smiled. In the 6 months since QB's transformation, the two had begun to talk, and slowly, a new relationship was formed. They had started out as comrades, but they slowly became friends. Now, however, they were almost like brother and sister. QB would be overprotective sometimes, and be teasing Naruto the next. He would tease back about a few things he had learned about her, like her crush on Haichibi, and this one embarrassing moment she had with Shikaku. F-Flower was about to make a retort, when a sudden puff of smoke interrupted them. A small orange and blue frog looked up at Naruto. Hey, there, got a message from old Bachan for you. Seems pretty important. Naruto nodded and took the scroll from the pouch around the frog's neck. Thanks. How's Gamakichi? The little frog had grown to massive size and was now almost as big as his dad, Chief Gamabunna. Big brother is doing great. He wanted me to say hi to all of you, see you with that. The little frog disappeared in a poof of smoke. Aren came over as Naruto unrolled the scroll. What is it? Naruto just stood there, gripping the scroll tightly. He read it over 3 times before he was finally able to look away from it. He looked up at the 3 concerned faces around him. It's official. Sasuke Uchiha has finished his training. They all stood there in silence for several minutes, until Link spoke up. That's good news, isn't it? Naruto nodded. That's the good news. The bad news is I have to fight the team when I get back. Aren shrugged. Piece of cake. Naruto, you know how strong you are. With QB backing you up, you have nothing to worry about. Naruto sighed. I know that, but still, I was hoping to just avoid the team. Instead, I have to fight him, and he'll probably try to kill me. Inside, QB growled. No one will harm you. This I swear. Naruto nodded and packed the scroll away in a storage scroll. Well, I guess I got no choice. He slowly smiled. At least now, I can see Hinata-chan and the others. I can't wait to see how strong they all have gotten. Aren smiled. That's the ticket. First thing tomorrow, we head back to your home. F-Flower smiled and hugged Naruto. I can't wait to meet some of your friends. Hinata sounds like someone I could really get along with. Link smirked. And I want to meet this Tenten. It would be interesting to see some of the weapons she's got. Not to mention I'll finally be able to taste that Ichiraku ramen. You nearly drove me crazy talking about it. Aren had become quite the ramen fan, although he could never be more obsessed about it than Naruto was. Naruto just smiled at all their comments. Yeah, home. Yujito crouched low, watching the group from a distance. Is that him? I think so. I feel a lot of power coming off him, but it feels different from QB's. It's like it's QB, but opposite. You're making a lot of sense, you know that? Yujito sighed as she slowly moved into the open. Hey there, she waved. Almost immediately, the entire group turned, hands on their weapons. The blonde with the black coat, sunglasses, and yuzu headband slowly removed his hand from the katana at his side and cocked his head. Are you a Jinchuriki? She nodded. Yeah. Nibi says she senses QB in you, but something is off. Naruto eyed her headband. You're from Kumo? You're a long way from home and deep in somewhat unfriendly territory. Yujito sighed. I know, but I have a few problems. I was attacked by a pair of guys, and they kept driving me away from home. Eventually, I decided to try and find you and see if you could help. But you're not easy to find. Naruto raised an eyebrow. 2 guys? Akatsuki, right? They were wearing black cloaks with red clouds. Yujito nodded and took a hesitant step forward. I just want to get back home. Can you help? Naruto turned to the others. Guys? Link shrugged. I'm not from around here, so I have no say in the matter. F-Flower nodded. I don't think she means any harm. And even if she did, I think you and Aren could handle her. Aren nodded. Besides, it could get us in good with Kumo. Naruto nodded. All right, but we're not just doing this to gain an ally. He turned to Yujito. You'll have to come with us to Konoha first. I promise we'll get you to Kumo after that. Yujito nodded slowly. Okay, but how do you know they won't imprison me or something? Naruto sighed and slowly drew Yuzu Aizu and cut his palm on it. He held up the blood-covered sword. I promise you on my blood and the sword of my family that you will return home. Yujito just looked at him. Why did you do that? You just cut your palm. Naruto face-planted. On the ground, he muttered, it's a blood oath, and Kyuubi will heal me in less than a minute. Yujito blushed. Oh, sorry. Naruto got up. All right. I suggest we rest, spar, train, whatever. Tomorrow, we head for Konoha. In the trees in the distance, Haiden and Kakazu of Akatsuki watched. Well, this ain't thing good. No, not at all. We could take one Jinchuriki, maybe two, but I don't think we can handle all that group. Guess we have to call Itachi and Kisame in to help us with this ing mess. Kakuzu sighed. Did you have to swear all the time? Yes, I effing do. The two left to contact their fellow Akatsuki members. That's it for today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out author of this story. Thanks for watching. Take care.